Most people believe logic wins disagreements, that if you explain yourself clearly enough, reason will prevail. That belief is exactly why they keep losing. Ego decides outcomes long before logic ever enters the room. And every difficult personality you face knows how to use that against you. What if I told you that the friction you feel, the resistance, the pushback, the endless stalemates, aren't random? They're engineered. This isn't about avoiding confrontation. It's about a permanent shift in how you read human behavior. Once you see this mechanism, everything will become painfully clear. And people who rely on it lose their advantage instantly. Most never notice it. They just feel drained, outmaneuvered, stuck. Think about the meetings that went nowhere, the projects that slowed to a crawl, the conversations that left you frustrated instead of resolved. You didn't clash with logic. You collided with ego, head on. And ego doesn't break. It lets you exhaust yourself. History is full of examples of this mistake. In the 1930s, France built the Maginot Line, the most advanced defensive system in the world. Miles of concrete, steel, firepower, an immovable wall designed to stop any attack. It worked perfectly, against the attack they expected. So when Germany invaded, they didn't challenge the wall. They went around it, through terrain the French believed was impassable. France wasn't defeated by force. It was defeated by certainty, by the belief that strength meant confrontation, and that anything that didn't look like a direct threat wasn't won. Do you see the pattern? How often have you accepted a situation that seemed like a step forward, a necessary compromise, or even a victory, only to find yourself exposed and vulnerable later? How many times has another's seemingly harmless gift, perhaps their feigned agreement, their initial concession, or even their very presence in your space, become the instrument of your own undoing? This isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about recognizing the enemy before it ever crosses your threshold. It's about understanding that the biggest threats often come disguised as the greatest opportunities. This invisible battlefield is where difficult personalities operate. They present you with a gift, a problem to solve, an argument to win. And you, watching this right now, are already ahead of the 99% who scrolled past. You are ready to see the hidden mechanism. And the first law you must understand is a gift that hides a deadly trap. Your first instinct is always wrong. You meet resistance. You meet a difficult personality. What do? You challenge them. You confront their perceived authority. This is a fatal error, a battle you cannot win directly. This is where most people falter. This is where opportunities vanish. Instead, you must master the principle of the empty throne. This is not about confrontation. It is about strategic surrender. You offer them the illusion of absolute control. You hand them a crown, a scepter, a vast, empty throne. They believe they are dictating the terms. They believe they are making the final decisions. They believe they hold all the power. This is the bait. This is the trap. Most people never notice this invisible dynamic. They crash headfirst into the ego. They waste precious energy on direct attacks. But you will learn to step aside. You watch them ascend to that empty throne. You watch them puff up with self-importance. They are so busy reveling in their perceived dominion, they miss the architect at work below. Underneath this illusion, you must meticulously construct the framework. You lay out the parameters. You define the unspoken boundaries. You guide their choices towards your predetermined outcome. They choose their path, but you laid the road. They make a decision, but you engineered the options. Every free choice they make leads them one step closer to your desired conclusion. True power isn't about occupying the throne yourself. That is a vulnerable position. True power is about orchestrating the play from the shadows. It is about making them willingly sit exactly where you want them, making them believe it was their idea all along, making them defend a decision you planted firmly in their mind. Do you understand the sheer, undeniable leverage this provides? This is not manipulation in the petty sense. This is understanding the fundamental levers of human nature. This is disarming the ego before it even knows it's under attack. You avoid direct conflict. You bypass their natural defenses. You turn their insatiable hunger for control into your greatest asset. Think about the difficult personalities you face daily. Your boss who demands absolute deference. A demanding client who believes they are always right. A stubborn family member who refuses to yield. How many times have you crashed against their ego? Paying the hidden tax of frustration, wasted time, lost opportunities. That tax ends now. Now stop and realize what this actually means for your future. You can navigate these interactions with surgical precision. You can achieve your goals, all while they believe they were the master puppeteers. This is the quiet dominance, the invisible victory, and this brings us to a secret even more dangerous, the art of strategic retreat itself. You now understand the empty throne, the void that drives them. But here is where the trap is set for the unwary. Most people, armed with this insight, charge headfirst. They see the ego. They try to dismantle it directly. This is a fatal mistake. Directly confronting their ego is like jabbing a sleeping beast. It leads to an immediate, visceral defense, an unthinking, automatic counterattack that will consume you. You must learn to retreat. This is not surrender. It is a calculated step back, a strategic withdrawal from the immediate line of fire. Do you see the difference? Feigned weakness is not surrender. It is not an admission of defeat. It is a tactical maneuver of the highest order. Its purpose is to draw out their true intentions, to bait their overconfidence into the open. You are not yielding ground. You are orchestrating their advance onto your chosen battlefield. You are creating a vacuum, a perceived vulnerability that their inflated ego simply cannot resist. It compels them to rush in. To fill that void you have intentionally left open, exposing their flanks in the process. History proves this truth with chilling precision. Consider what happened to Napoleon Bonaparte at the Battle of Austerlitz in December 1805. He faced a combined force of Russian and Austrian armies, numerically superior. What did the emperor do? He deliberately appeared weak. He feigned a retreat, making his army seem disorganized, vulnerable, ripe for the taking. He sent false envoys implying he sought peace, further cementing the Allied commander's belief that he was on the verge of collapse. The Allied forces, brimming with overconfidence, saw this perceived weakness. They rushed forward. Their egos convinced them victory was at hand. They believed they were attacking a broken army. But this was no broken army. This was a trap. Napoleon had hidden reserves. He had meticulously prepared his decisive blow. As the Allied center advanced into what they thought was a vulnerable French position, he unleashed his concealed might, their aggression, their certainty, their belief in their own superiority. It was turned against them. They expended their energy on what they thought was an empty target, while Napoleon prepared the crushing blow that secured one of his most decisive victories. This is the lesson you must internalize. You allow them to expend their energy, their fury, their self-aggrandizing certainties on an empty target. You become a phantom, a mirage of weakness. While they are consumed by their own perceived triumph, you are not idle. You are preparing. You are positioning. You are setting the stage for the decisive blow. This is how you disarm the difficult personality. Not by direct assault, but by the art of strategic retreat. Now, this next law is what separates the masters from the victims. It is the silent weapon against the loudest, most unyielding ego. Most people never notice this. But the human ego craves one thing above all else: validation. It is a hunger that defines existence. It is a weakness you are about to weaponize. This is the mirror tactic. It sounds deceptively simple. It is anything but. You reflect their own ideas, their own perceived brilliance. Back to them. Make them believe your insights are merely echoes of their genius. Can you truly grasp the power in this psychological sleight of hand? This isn't casual flattery, the kind that transparently fails. That is for amateurs. This is psychological surgery. You are feeding their ego precisely what it demands, precisely what it craves, precisely what it cannot resist, while subtly shaping its direction. Imagine a predator luring its prey, not with bait, but with the prey's own scent, its own reflection. It is a similar principle, but far more insidious. Your carefully chosen words become their deepest, most cherished thoughts. Their thoughts, once believed to be their own, become your silent command. Do you understand the true gravity of this irreversible control? Their inherent defensiveness melts away. Why would they resist? Because you are not opposing them. You are amplifying them. You are making them their own most ardent champion. When they champion what they believe are their ideas, they champion yours, entirely unknowingly. They believe they are winning. They believe they are leading the charge. But you, the quiet architect, hold the reins. You are the invisible hand shaping their perceived victory. This is a truth invisible to those who aren't looking. This is the brutal reality most people are too afraid to truly see. Consider the executive who dismisses every new proposal, every innovative thought, as a personal challenge. You do not argue. You do not push. You listen. You nod. You internalize. Then, days or weeks later, you present a new idea. An idea remarkably similar to one they subtly hinted at, perhaps even scoffed at, just a short time before. But now, it is undeniably their idea. They claim it. They defend it. They drive it forward with all the force of their ego. And you, watching this right now, are already miles ahead of the 99% who are still fighting that ego head-on, oblivious to the hidden tax they are paying. The mirror tactic doesn't just disarm, it cultivates, It turns their greatest strength, their unwavering self-belief, into your most potent, most loyal weapon. But here is where the trap is set. What happens when their ego is so vast, so impenetrable, that even reflection fails to make an impact? And this brings us to a secret even more dangerous. You've learned to turn their ego into your weapon, but that was just the surface. Beneath it lies a more profound vulnerability, an unseen trap they fall into themselves. Right now, let me show you how this is being used against you. Difficult personalities, the truly unyielding ones. They thrive on an unwavering conviction. They are utterly certain. This isn't just confidence. It's a fortress built from their own self-assuredness. And that fortress, ironically, is their gravest weakness. Your objective is not to storm that fortress head-on. You do not challenge their certainty directly. That only hardens their resolve. Instead, you plant seeds of doubt. You sow them in the soil of their own assumptions, indirectly. You don't tell them they're wrong. You engineer a reality where they discover it for themselves. History proves this principle with chilling precision. Consider Operation Mincemeat, a strategic deception so audacious it shifted the tides of World War II. In 1943, British intelligence needed to divert German forces from Sicily, the true target of an Allied invasion. Their solution? A deceased vagrant, meticulously dressed as a Royal Marines officer. This man, the man who never was then given false documents. These papers fabricated an invasion of Greece and Sardinia. The body was allowed to wash ashore in neutral Spain, where it was recovered by authorities. The Germans, receiving these captured documents, swallowed the bait whole. They diverted critical divisions, weakening their defenses precisely where the real attack would land. Notice the brutal elegance of it. The British didn't storm German intelligence headquarters. They didn't directly challenge German assumptions. They created a scenario. They crafted a misdirection so intricate. The enemy's own sophisticated intelligence apparatus, fueled by its certainty, led itself down a path of its own making, a path you have subtly engineered. The Germans believed they had uncovered a secret, unaware it was a trap set by their own overconfidence. The ultimate weapon is not overwhelming force. It is not direct confrontation. The ultimate weapon is the enemy's own mind, turned against itself. It is their unwavering conviction, their absolute certainty, twisted into a lever you can use to move their entire world. This isn't about winning an argument. This is about orchestrating their defeat using their own internal logic. Do you see the power in this? The sheer strategic advantage. What happens when you can make their own beliefs betray them? What happens when you can turn their most guarded certainty into their undoing? The next step reveals how to truly set this in motion, without ever uttering a single word of accusation. And this brings us to a secret even more dangerous, the power of the unspoken word, the devastating force of calculated silence. Most people, when confronted, feel an overwhelming urge to speak, to explain, to justify their position, their actions, their very being. This is not strength. This is an immediate, glaring display of weakness, a desperate attempt to control a narrative already slipping away. You betray your hand the moment you utter a single unnecessary word. Your opponent sees it. They exploit it. They feast on your need to be understood. This is a hidden tax you can no longer afford to pay. Instead, you will do nothing. You will resist the impulse. You will create a vacuum, a profound, absolute silence. This silence is not empty space. It is a strategic weapon. It is a pressure chamber. It forces the other party to project their entire inner world onto that void, to fill the terrifying emptiness you refuse to occupy. Watch them squirm. Observe their discomfort. Their eyes will dart. Their bluster will falter. Their ego, starved of your verbal engagement, will begin to cannibalize itself. Their desperate need to control the conversation, to dominate the narrative. It will become their undoing. It will compel them to speak, to over-explain, to reveal their true hand, their hidden intentions, their raw, unguarded fears. Every word they speak in that moment of silence is a gift to you. It is pure intelligence. It is a confession without prompting. It is their weakness, laid bare for your strategic advantage. You give them the rope. They will hang themselves with their own frantic explanations. They will expose the core of their ego, the very thing you are learning to disarm. Why do they rush to fill the void? What are they truly afraid of revealing to you? Are you ready to witness their unraveling? Are you prepared to let them dig their own grave with their own words, simply because you refused to provide a shovel? Silence is not absence. It is not a sign of surrender. It is pure, unadulterated power. It forces them to project their fears, their intentions, and ultimately their deepest weaknesses directly onto you. You become a mirror, a void. And they, in their desperate attempt to fill it, show you exactly how to defeat them. This method is invisible to those who aren't looking. But you, watching this right now, are already seeing the gears turn. You are learning to wield a force more potent than any argument, the force of the unspoken, the quiet, terrifying power of calculated silence, a power that separates the masters from the victims. You've learned the destructive power of calculated silence. Now, prepare for a weapon that twists the very fabric of human interaction. Here is the truth that most people are too afraid to see. Praise, when wielded correctly, can be a potent poison. An invisible blade. Wrapped in velvet, you offer a compliment, not just any flattery, a precise calibration. You highlight a quality they pride themselves on, a strength they parade for all to see. But this praise, this seemingly harmless affirmation, it simultaneously exposes a potential flaw, or more cunningly, it sets a trap. You are not tearing them down with outright insults. That is for amateurs. You are helping them build their own gilded cage, reinforced by their own vanity. Their own self-perception becomes the bars. History proves this strategic baiting. Consider what happened to the Roman legions at Cannae. 216 BCE. A clash that redefined warfare. Hannibal, the Carthaginian general, faced a superior Roman force. What did he do? He didn't meet their strength head-on. Instead, he intentionally weakened the center of his army. A deliberate, visible vulnerability. The Romans, arrogant, confident in their numerical advantage, saw an opening. They saw a weakness to exploit. They pushed forward, deep into Hannibal's lines, blinded by their own aggression, blinded by the perceived victory. Is this not precisely how an ego operates? Once they were deeply engaged, committed, the trap sprung. Hannibal's stronger flanks, hidden in plain sight, closed in. A deadly embrace, complete encirclement, annihilation. their own momentum, their own perceived strength. It became their downfall. Their ego led them into the jaws of defeat. The poisoned compliment works in the same brutal fashion. It creates a dilemma they cannot escape. To reject the compliment is to deny their own ego. To refuse the praise is to admit a weakness they believe they do not possess. But to accept it, to bask in that perceived affirmation, that is to walk willingly into your snare. Their vanity becomes the very mechanism of their capture. Do you see the leverage here? The hidden strings you can pull? This isn't about manipulation for its own sake. This is about understanding the architecture of control, the architecture of their own minds. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is how you disarm the difficult. But there is a secret even more dangerous, one that lies in the power of agreement itself. Stop and realize what this actually means for your future. Direct contradiction is fuel for the ego. It validates their position. It forces them to dig in deeper, to defend their flawed premise with everything they have. Agreement, however, disarms it. It is an invisible hand, a silent weapon. You begin by agreeing. You accept their initial statement, their premise, even when you know, with absolute certainty, it is fundamentally flawed. This is not concession. It is strategic patience. It immediately builds rapport. Their guard drops. They see you as an ally, as someone who understands. They believe you are on their side. Once their trust is secured, once their defenses are completely down, you subtly pivot. You do not argue. You do not correct. Instead, you gently guide their conclusion. You lead them to an outcome that serves your purpose. You make them believe it was their own brilliant idea all along. History proves this method is devastatingly effective. Consider what happened in the brutal winter of 1776. George Washington, after crossing the Delaware, faced a seemingly superior British force. The British believed they understood Washington's position. They expected a predictable enemy, weakened and retreating. This was their premise. Washington allowed them to cling to this belief. He used feints. He created diversions. Rapid, unexpected maneuvers at Trenton and Princeton were not just attacks. They were acts of profound, strategic misdirection. He deceived the British about his true strength and intentions. He manipulated their expectations. He guided them into positions where their own assumptions became their undoing. The British were not outfought by superior numbers. They were outmaneuvered by an invisible hand. They were led to their own strategic error. These vital victories revitalized a revolution, not through brute force, but by guiding the opponent to their own demise. You see the parallel? You are not fighting them. You are not engaging in a battle of wills. You are simply guiding them, gently, imperceptibly, making them believe they came to the conclusion themselves. Is there a more powerful form of control? How much energy have you wasted trying to force a direct confrontation? This method turns their ego from an obstacle into a tool. Their certainty becomes the very path to their strategic error. It is quiet. It is unseen. And it is absolutely devastating. You've disarmed them. You've mirrored their flaws. You've used their certainty against them. But what is the ultimate act? What happens when you want them to dissolve entirely? Not just be neutralized? This is where you offer them the gift of their own burden. Understand this principle. The final, most devastating act of ego cracking is to make them the architects of their own humbling. You don't defeat them. You provide the tools for their self-destruction. Disguised as an unparalleled opportunity, it is a generosity they cannot refuse. How do you execute this? You delegate responsibility. You offer them a project, a position, a task that plays directly to their most exaggerated, perceived strengths. Their ego will swell. They will see it as validation, as a promotion, as your recognition of their supreme ability. But you, the strategist, know better. You know this opportunity inherently exposes their limitations, or worse, it creates a no-win scenario they are too blind to foresee. History proves this brutal truth. Consider the fate of many Roman generals who, brimming with hubris, were granted command of distant, resource-draining campaigns by shrewd emperors. A general like Crassus, obsessed with military glory and wealth, was given command against the Parthians. He saw it as his grand opportunity. His ego drove him to ignore warnings, to overextend his legions, to disregard sound tactical advice. The gift of command became the instrument of his annihilation at Carrhae. The emperor merely provided the stage. Crassus's own inflated sense of self wrote the tragedy. That is the power of this method, when the outcome inevitably falters. They own the failure, not you. You merely provided the opportunity. You extended the hand. You gave them the stage to prove themselves. They performed exactly as their unchecked ego dictated. Do you see the distinction? You are not their antagonist. You are their enabler. You allow them to carry the full weight of their own ego, openly, proudly, until it crumbles under its own impossible mass. It is a silent, devastating collapse. This is the final step in dissolving a difficult personality. You let them exhaust themselves. You watch as their perceived strengths become glaring weaknesses. You stand back as their own certainty leads them directly into the abyss of their own making. No direct confrontation, no visible struggle, just the inevitable implosion of a self-inflated identity. Are you prepared to wield such quiet dominion? This quiet dominance, this absolute control without overt action. It is the true mark of the master. You have navigated the labyrinth. You have peeled back the layers of illusion. Not just about others, but about yourself. This journey was never about accumulating mere tactics. It was an irreversible shift, a fundamental rewiring of how you perceive power, influence, and the fragile architecture of the human ego. Can you feel it? The subtle, undeniable change within you. The world outside remains a chaotic tempest, but you now possess an internal compass calibrated to an entirely different truth. You see the invisible threads of ego woven into every interaction. You recognize the hidden levers of influence waiting to be pulled, and you discern the precise moment to apply pressure, or to silently retreat, letting the other person unravel themselves. Most people stumble through life, blind to these forces. They react. They are manipulated. They pay the hidden tax of their own ignorance. But you are no longer most people. You are now equipped. You are awake. The true master does not dominate with noise or aggression. They operate with an almost imperceptible certainty. Their strength is quiet, profound, and absolute. They guide outcomes not through brute force, but through a deep, unshakable understanding of human nature. They move with the quiet strength of absolute knowledge. They understand the game. Do you comprehend the magnitude of what you now hold? This is not a temporary advantage. This is a permanent elevation of your perception. Your journey to true mastery has only just begun. The path ahead is often solitary. It demands unwavering discipline. Yet the rewards are immense. They are measured in undisturbed calm, in effortless control, in a profound sense of inner dominion. The power you now wield is not for the faint of heart. It is a responsibility, a weapon, a shield. The world will never look the same. And you, watching this right now, will never be the same.